Eastern journey from ignorance to wisdom. So last session we discussed about the six enemies: binding desire, and if the binding desire is fulfilled, so the mind is seeking a repeat desire. A repeat desire. Behind the repeat desire, there is an intense attachment, obsession. There comes, when we talk of the obsession or craving or binge eating. So behind that repeat desire, there is a intense sense of attachment. But if the binding desire is not fulfilled, then we have an hesitation, anger, frustration, which you can also include depression, anxiety. So uh, these three factors go together and create a delusion. And if you continue with the repeat desire, what happens, with the repeat desire? Means, my life is full of all kinds of pleasure. I go on a vacation, I have a yacht, and I have I have a big car, and I have a big house. I have 5 houses at 5 different places. That is a repeat desire. So it leads to a pride or an ego. And when there is a ego, the jealousy has to be there. So these are the six enemies. We have to constantly guard ourselves from these six enemies. So these six enemies have imprisoned us. Master says they have imprisoned us in a hellish afterlife. I experience the hell now, and I will continue to experience the challenges which I try to avoid in the name of the blessed. How can I overcome these six enemies? So there are two ways. One is the self-inquiry, and other is I am attached to something outside. I have to attach to the real self. But how can I attach to the real self? The real self is unmanifest. It is a pure consciousness. So that is why we have many images like Shiva or Krishna, Om Namah Shivaya. We have different mantras with a particular image of the Shiva. Oh, let us have Om Namah Shivaya. So you continue doing it. You don't leave it for weeks, days, and the months. So there are two ways. One is the self-inquiry, and one is if I'm attached to something outside, whether it's a person, whether it's a honey, whether it's a son and daughter, whether it's a wealth. So I have to redirect that attachment to inside. And if both go together, the progress is fast. Progress is very fast. Then we get rid of this delusion. And I will also talk about casual way of doing the things with conscious awareness when you redirect your emotion in doing some things that is very kind, that is very noble in the society, that can also purify the mind. We will talk, but first, all the six enemies. We have two means: the self-inquiry and attachment to the real self. If it is not an attachment, so what will happen? Attachment will remain outside. We will remain attached to the things. I'll go on vacation, this, oh, my neighbor has gone, so I will also go there. And there you become sick. But still I have a pride of saying that I have gone on vacation. For example, very subtle. So where these six enemies live, they are living in the mind. Where is the mind? Mind has to do with emotion and feeling. And with the intellect comes the thought. And the thought associated with an emotion continue the cycle of these six enemies in our mind. This is what the master is talking about. So what happens now? If they are cycling in the mind, they create the world. What is that word? The word is suffering. Are you getting it? I believe so. Because that my world in which I live, which is a cause of this suffering, is living in the mind. The real world remains as it is. There's a house will remain as it is. That is why even after death, the house does not chase me. But I keep on chasing the house. I feel, I imagine. So when I imagine the house is going to continue to chase me, continue to follow me, what is this? This is what the delusion is. I have to constantly, you listen to the talk and then rephrase in your own words every day, until this thoughts of the wisdom settles in your mind, and then see what happens. Life has to be changed completely. So we have the 9 factors in the first category. The word is suffering, the foolishness. You already understood that. We are not fooled, but we are just talking about others, We are talking about others are fool. I am wise. That is why I am suffering. So first is the foolishness. Second, because of that foolishness, the mind is wandering. It is scattered mind. And because of that scattered mind, we have a sense of an attachment. Because we have a sense of attachment, the fourth factor is it results into emotional dependence. And because of the emotional dependence, we have a big ego. So ego moves into the selfishness. And then the sixth factor, because of the ego, emotional dependence, we have an intellectual paralysis. And because of the intellectual paralysis, my desires keeps on changing. So 7 main factors. What are these 7 main factors in one word? The world is suffering. But what is the 9th factor? Suffering is caused by the 6 enemies in the mind. Are you clear? So whenever there is a suffering, whenever you have a pain, anguishness, anxiety, duality, and a conflict, that is why we are learning. That is why, many American authors said that Buddha is a highly pessimist. Why? His first principle is the world is suffering. No, you have to come face to face with the reality. Buddha is not pessimist. How? Second factor, satsang. Satsang. So I have to challenge the false assumption. When I challenge the false assumption, I have to check whether I am moving to non-attachment, whether I am moving to dispassion, whether I am moving to steadiness of the mind. If I am moving there, I am applying the principles correctly. If I am not moving there, I still have a kind of a delusion. So you need an assistance of a support of a teacher, and you should write it openly. No problem. These are foolproof principles, I tell you. You listen to it, you practice it, you know these principles, you remember them. Whenever you have an anxiety, you apply these principles. You have a sense of non-attachment, followed by dispassion, followed by steadiness of the mind, followed by calmness. If they do not come, you are somewhere wrong. Principles are not wrong. It cannot be wrong. It has been practiced for 10,000 years. So when you do that satsang, listening and contemplating, what happens, you start recognizing the false versus the real self. The moment you recognize the false versus the real self, what happens? Mind is 100% available to you. Previously, I was available to the mind. In other words, mind was working on me, and now I am working on the mind. Well, these are the second step, the remedial steps. But it will only come if you have a commitment to the self-discovery. Commitment lives in the intellect. And what is that commitment? Commitment to the self-inquiry. From the day one, if you follow these principles, even 80%, from the day one, you get rid of that anxiety and duality and a conflict. I have one student who has filed for bankruptcy. Is totally frustrated. But after learning this principle per other principles, the path of karma yoga is very calm, relaxed. Whatever has to happen outside, it will happen. So what happens when you follow these two main groups? Then you undergo a change every day. You undergo a change every day. Change in what term? The mind starts living in wisdom. You wake up in the morning and the mind says, I'm upset, and you say, stop this. The part of delusion. Mood swing, you stop it. Anxiety, you stop it. How? Why? Because you followed the second group. How can you say modern psychology has not been able to dissolve and remove and treat those depression? You have to try this and you have to experience it. You simply follow these principles and see what happens. Life is going to change. The mind starts living in wisdom. Because it starts living in wisdom, you are not managing anger, you are not managing anxiety, you are not managing depression. You have sublimated, you have transcended them. So what happens? Your realization, all the 7 factors pertaining to the body, I gave you, you have to go back and think of it. Outer change is not required. You see, modern science pays too much attention on the outer change. Oh, your husband is really crazy. It's better to divorce. Keep a distance. Can you keep a distance with the crazy mind? You have to change your mind. Then even the crazy atmosphere, crazy condition outside, crazy person outside cannot make any harm to you. Do you see that? Two different approach. Think. I'm just again asking you to think. Outer change is not required, and if you are superimposing the outer change, there is a hypocrisy. For some time we feel relaxed and calm, but after that, you know what happens? My master used to say that, one couple used to fight against each other and ultimately they divorced, and the husband started feeling lonely because there is no one to fight. So he went into depression. So I acquired a habit. Habit because of the world is suffering. So if we start searching the solution outside, that may cost me dearly. And ultimately the fourth factor is that I live into that state of remind, recognize, revise, and repeat. Why? Because millions of past impressions will return and will cause me suffering. Millions, trillions of impressions. What we are talking. Do you still remember what is delusion? Or you have forgotten? The lesson is gone. What is delusion? Delusion lives in the mind that obscures the perception of reality. Miss Universe, I'm talking for, on behalf of the men. You see the Miss Universe attracted, attached. Now the Miss Universe, there is an internal attachment. So perception of the Miss Universe becomes very near to me. Delusion. It happens instantly. Or other way now, Mr. Universe. It happens instantly. Are you getting it? I'm just giving one example. What a beautiful house. Appreciation is good. Good. Hold on. But if I don't know these principles, that very appreciation becomes an attachment. Oh, like that young guy who told me I gave 200% to that girl. Who told you? Who told you? Delusion. So we can recognize that delusion in daily life, in daily thought, in daily speech, and daily action. Fourth group is very important. Remind, recognize, revise, and repeat. Like a fog, like a fog descending on a landscape. It clouds the consciousness, preventing the clear sight. That is the meaning I gave 200% to a girl or a boy. I yell at someone unconscious of inner turmoil, driving the reaction. There is some inner turmoil that is driving the reaction, and I'm yelling at someone else. I have to get rid of this delusion. Now ask the question, why the delusion manifest in the mind? Why? I fail in the self-inquiry, or I am attached to the world outside for my peace and happiness. If I am attached to inside, it is gone. If I do the self-inquiry, I see that delusion is not there. I'm not sitting with the Miss Universe, for example. So we start dreaming. Are you getting it? My friend, it happens to everyone without the self-inquiry. My mind by default is attached. That is why the fourth group is very important. It results into an awakening. Remind, recognize, revise, repeat. Oh, delusion has come. Go away. Fog has created a delusion, so let me clear my specs and look at it again. Miss Universe remain Miss Universe at far. There is no question of giving 200%. Are you getting it? Delusion. That is the problem, the mind. That is why you think of these four divisions, four groups. I fail in self-inquiry, one, or I am attached to something outside. Solution, start the self-inquiry. What is the way the self-inquiry? These four groups. Or you can be attached to Om Namah Shivaya. Where does the delusion reside? I've given an answer. It resides in the mind. Think. It dwells in the field of the mind. And I make you responsible. Look at it. What a craziness. I make you responsible. I gave you 200% and you are not loving me. Who told you? No, but now that guy is very happy. So desire resides in the mind field, contaminating the mirror which could reflect the truth. How to overcome that delusion? I have to repeat it again, my friends. It will never happen that you have understood, you have prepared a note, and you have forgotten where the notes are kept. So that forgetfulness is also a kind of delusion. The new verses are coming, which points to that. Look at the penetration, such a deep and subtle understanding of the mind by this master. How to overcome the delusion? I have to investigate belief and expose the blind spots surfacing from unconscious biases instead of acting on autopilot. Unexamined life. We have to shine the light of mindful inquiry. I have not to look at outside, I have to look inside. Who is responsible for my problem? And when through the inquiry, when you recognize the delusion in the mind is the cause of my problem, you have really proved the four factors. The fourth one, you have reminded yourself. There is another way to put it. When we react habitually without conscious presence, delusion overtakes. Reaction. Sometimes your mind gets the habit of blaming and reacting. So that habit continues until the death. Then you continue to blame and react, even if the other person is very good. You find a reason to blame. So as we continue the journey, we discover, oh my goodness, this is the way my mind is reacting. Let me calm down. Let me calm down. So the entire field of delusion is exposed through this self-inquiry. And when the entire field of the delusion is exposed by the self-inquiry and you continue the practice, the time comes, the delusion is gone. Delusion is one which veils the reality. It clouds the consciousness. It clouds the consciousness and puts the content into the mind. What are those contents? Reaction, blame, complaint, duality, conflict, upset, mood swing. When you say it clouds the consciousness, It traps your awareness in distortion. When I say it clouds the consciousness, it manifests in the mind in the form of a thoughts, feeling, emotions. What are those thoughts, feeling, and emotions? I'm upset. You wake up in the morning, you have 10 hours of sleep, and you say, my mood is upset. What a great guy you are. I don't question it. So when I don't question it, lingers on. It becomes more habit. So at least out of the 7 days, 5 days, your mood swings without any reason. And I follow it. When you go to a psychiatrist, you go to Christina, what will happen? Think. I'm not saying that, I'm not challenging anyone. You have to think, you have to understand the in-depth understanding of the mind, brain, consciousness, thoughts, habits, attitude, associated emotions. And once you understand based on these principles, it is like a fog obscuring object, causing one to lose sense of direction, perspective, unexamined life. It clouds the mirror mind, preventing accurate reflection of the truth. I have to look into this every day. Delusion. You have to, one word, the delusion. Second word is the dispassion. That is the second group. From the dispassion. Third is the experiences. It may be of calmness, relaxation, peace, joy, insight. Fourth is the reminder. Life is going to change. You need not to worry. Those anxiety and depression, they are sublimated, they are evaporated. We are not saying we manage them. And if you have heard from me that we treat them, so no, there is a disclaimer. We sublimate them. They do not remain there. The guy who told me that I gave 200% to that girl, so now when I remind him, he starts laughing. It's a sublimation. There is no treatment. The delusion that was living in the mind dissolved completely. If you don't remove the delusion, the light of the wisdom will never happen. If you find a solution, alternate solution, it is not going to happen. Alternate solution means that I live a hypocrite life. We have to follow. There is no other possibility. So that delusion, like ignorance of a rope being a snake, not knowing the reality leads to a false perception. Delusion sustains this incorrect assumption, causing the suffering. I'll repeat it. Understand that. That's a beautiful example that in the dusk, we are walking and the rope is there, but a false projection is created by the rope. We have many rattlesnakes there, so don't track in the dusk in Arizona. Most dangerous and most poisonous snakes are there. So, what the master is giving an example that there is a rope, but dusk means that I have an unexamined life. There is no light of wisdom. There is no self inquiry. So, in the absence of the self inquiry, like ignorance of a rope, being a snake, not knowing reality leads to a false perception. I don't know the reality, so that rope is a rattlesnake. Now the delusion sustains this incorrect assumption, causing the suffering. This is what I solved the problem of this young guy who told me I gave 200% to a girl. Exactly, this is the same statement. I see the snake in a rope. This is what the master is talking about, that I must examine, hammer the mind, hammer the delusion. That is the text we are learning. I can bet you at this stage you all are seekers. You reach to that state of calmness and peace and the joy. Maybe the past impression triggers you, and the next moment you remind, you revise, and you are there. We are not building a castle there. We are not asking you to dream. We are asking you to do the self inquiry, practice, contemplate, and reflect, and get out of this delusion. If you are in the grip of the delusion, only the teacher and the knowledge of the Eastern wisdom can help you. There is no other possibility. Other possibilities are there, but they are the temporary solutions. By constant listening and learning, contemplating and reflecting, and once you are stuck, go back to the first 9 factors. Check it again, where you are stuck. If you cannot find the answer, go back again, repeat it again. And the second group is the satsang of these 6 factors. You feel where I lack the self inquiry, where I am still attached. Close your eyes. Eyes are closed. Eyes are closed in place, position, place, position, and posture. Do I need to explain it, my friends? I believe no. I need not to believe. You know it, you can do it. And in that state, you're comfortable and carefree. Check again. That being comfortable and carefree is fully settled in your mind. While being comfortable, your mind instantly moves to the joints, means the mind is going within. Mind is going within, yes. Mind is going within. And in being carefree, you become totally free from any thought. Mind does not dare to associate with the emotion. That is the meaning of being carefree. And then what happens? You see that You have done all these steps without actually doing it. So how you have done it? Through the knowledge. And the next one is also the knowledge. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. The way your mind says, I am depressed, you are asking the mind to say what the mantra means. May there be happiness for all. I'm giving you another dimension of this mantra. Your mind says, I am depressed. You say, may there be happiness for all. I am reacting, I am angry. No, may there be happiness for all. You reach to a point where the pressure, emotions of may there be happiness for all takes over your past impressions. How? Keep on repeating until the mind settles in this and replaces that. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. Sarvesham shantir bhavatu. May there be peace for all. Peace for all. So how can you have a peace for all when you are away from the likes and dislikes? When you have examined your life, it is not on autopilot. First thing you tell your mind, whether one is my enemy or a friend, I have one thing. Peace, 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 peace for everyone. Until the time your mind changes that emotion. Sarvesham, Sarvesham, Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham, Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham, Purnam Bhavatu. Whenever your mind is empty, just go on repeating this during the day. May there be completeness in all. Completeness in all. When everyone is complete, including me, there is no question of rift or duality and a confusion. Means there is no reason to be in delusion. Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu, sarvesham mangalam bhavatu, sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. May there be auspiciousness for all. And now looking deep inside the forehead, in the space. So the space is there. You are aware of the space. You are dropping Om Shanti there. You recheck the body is in the state of sensation, relaxation, and stillness. And there you start breathing into the ribs. Quick, short, and the gentle breath. You are enjoying the breathing. Does the mind feels the burden of doing it? No, we have to reach to that state where you start enjoying. Resistance, you remember, you endure it, and from endurance, you have a joy. Because you have endured it, and mind says, no, I will continue doing it. Why? That is a recognition. The resistance is gone from the mind. That also means you are removing and resolving the past impressions, which will not be repeated in your life. Continue breathing. Om Shanti continues. Stillness in the body continues. You see all the three layers of awareness continues, which helps you to drop that unconscious and habitual impulsive pattern of the mind. And stop this, pay attention to the flow of the breath. First we will reach to the 9 minutes. Each breath one day means only 27 minutes of the breathing. Just think and motivate yourself. And once we have done that, then it's not a big issue. Then we can even do 1 minute and 2 minutes, and the breath has an equal flow. We know that the mind is now following. Mind is 100% available to me. You're paying attention to the flow of the breath. So these are very subtle indications that if the flow of the breath is equal, resistance is gone, resistance to endurance, to the joy of doing. It's a wonderful state. And now looking into the space inside Om Shanti, stillness in the body, and start breathing into the belly. It's a longer breath. It's a longer breath which gives you I would say unusual sensation in the head in the beginning, and after that it settles down. It is the same. You get out of the resistance and to endurance and to the joy of doing. And if that happens, your breath is bound to be equal. The flow has to be equal. Let us see that. Continue. You're continuing the breathing, Om Shanti, stillness in the body. And if there is any resistance, you endure it. And that endurance takes you to the joy of doing it. Means what? You have dropped and dissolved any reaction, complaint from the mind. What it means? You have taken over the mind. How to check it? We will check it. Long breath. Again, pay attention. When you are inhaling, you expand your belly, and when you exhale it, you contract your belly. So you are aware of at each point. Otherwise, the delusion will take over. What exactly we are doing by this? That is why we say the breathing purifies the mind. We raise our awareness by pointed awareness to the breath. We have added the mantra to the breath. We have added a long and the hissing breath. We want to keep the body steady. Then we bypass all those resistance by endurance to the joy of doing, to the flow of the breath. Continue, continue, my friends. Continue. Continue. You're doing belly breathing, long in the hissing. You're doing Om Shanti. And you're in the state of sensation, relaxation, and stillness of the body. You see, we are tackling physical level, emotional level, mental level, intellectual level. Intellectual is Om Shanti. Mental and emotional, obviously, through the breathing, we do not want to keep any kind of an emotion which leads me to delusion and the stillness in the body. And now is the time to stop this breathing. Om Shanti. Also pay attention to the flow of the breath. You see why we are paying attention to the flow of the breath? There are many reasons. One of the reasons is that we want to help the mind to go deeper from the form to the formless. We don't want to hang on the mind to anything which is manifest. And the easy way to check the flow of the breath. And if the flow of the breath is equal, you will find the real joy coming from inside. Now, they breathe deep, silent and slow, first into the belly, then into the rib cage. And breathe out from the belly first and then the rib cage. As you inhale, move the mind from the center top of the head to the tailbone, singing mentally. Mentally, you are singing. You are a singer. Om Shanti. Shanti. That Shanti ends at the tailbone. When you are breathing out, the mind begins again. As if the mind is rising up, reaching to the top of center of the head. Shanti. Like this. So it is a deep, silent, slow breathing. It's a directed, we are directing the mind inside. Make it, when you direct the mind with a mantra, and if you maintain a conscious awareness, it goes very deep. Very deep means rise in awareness. I gave you an example. I made you understand clearly there is nothing to be left for conjecture, imagination, or hallucinations. Shanti. I'm triggering the emotion by singing. You are following both the method. One is the self-inquiry, and other is that love. Why shouldn't I be attached to inside? Why should I be attached to outside with the name and the form? Name and the form is going to change every time. Shanti. Shanti. We want to be very extremely logical. What happens now? Your singing regulates the breath. So in one inhalation, maybe it takes 5 to 7 seconds, and one exhalation takes the same. So it means in 15 seconds, you have 2 Om Shanti, one breath. So how many breaths you take in 1 minute? Only 4 breaths. That is the secret. We'll talk about it. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. And now leave this looking inside the triangle, looking inside the cave of the heart, the triangle, and Om Shanti on each side of a triangle. You already know, find a sync. And the moment you find a sync, pushing the mind inside the cave of your heart. And when you see mind seemingly stops, you just say Shanti and you are absorbed. Absorbed means thoughtlessness or mind. That is a state. Thought will remain outside. But you discover something new, a new state. Calmness in the ocean. The water is dried up? No. The water is still there. That's why it takes a little longer time to understand, not only understand, practice, and realize. Continue. I'm with you. And if the mind, you find the mind identifies with the thought, there is a distraction. You return again to the triangle, sinking and getting absorbed. It's a conscious recognition that behind the surface mind, thinking, thoughts, multiplicity of the universe, there is something deeper. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bring your awareness on the right hand, your awareness on the left hand. Lift your Buddha palms, place it on your eyes. Open the eyes inside the palms. Know your experiences. Bring the hands down. Let us share our experiences. How are you, Stephen?
I'm good. Thank you, sir. Great meditation. My breath flow was even from start to finish. What I found to be a little bit different during this meditation was, outside of the complete silence, is that I found so much joy and happiness in the heart center during the triangle that it was a different experience that I continue to see the triangle get brighter and larger. And I was so focused on the breath and the movement around the triangle that my breath intake and outflow was growing with the triangle. And I felt that at each one of the points of the triangle, there was always a pause. And that pause just created a sense of elation. And I kept trying to prevent myself from smiling because there was just joy in that. So, but thank you.
Mind goes very deep inside. It is totally absorbed. It loses the idea of a multiplicity. It loses the idea that how you are different than me. So those are the moments of the joy. And that is how you experience that state. And it is a conscious experience, deeper and the richer. How are you, David and Jerry?
Thank you, sir. Um, yeah, I enjoyed the lesson very much. Definitely going to be listening to that. The message of endurance and peace and happiness. And I had some experience recently with a difficult person in business, and instead of looking at them as difficult and all these different things, I just say I wish them peace and happiness, and just let it be. Um, in my heart center, it was interesting. It was three dimensional. So it wasn't lines of a triangle, it was sides of a triangle I was envisioning, which I thought was the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah, that's
very, very,
again a richer experience like this, Stephen. So the mind is going deeper and deeper. Understand, mind is going deeper and deeper. It's a rise in awareness. We discover a higher state of the consciousness. And that is how it results into a variety of experience. Beautiful. How are you, Jerry?
Sir, I'm good, thank you. It was very deep meditation, completely absorbed. Really don't have a lot of words for it. I find with the lesson, the takeaway from the lesson for me is that the mind always jumps to creating peace when there's something that's troubled or there's not clarity, or the mind wants to see the whole picture so that it can help make things as smooth as possible. So it doesn't mean that I don't know. It just always, like you said, with the mantra, it goes back to wanting people to have peace and happiness. But even further than that, and wanting and seeing the peace and happiness in all of us. But more than that, actually, the mind goes to, and how can we bring joy to this? How to the joy of doing? So how can we add and try to get through this process better?
Yes, yes. So, what happens in the beginning when we start doing the practice? The mind has yet to understand the principles. As gradual our understanding deepens, there is always a joy of doing. And when that joy of the doing is there, that changes the entire life completely. And I think in the end, I will talk about what did you talk to me. When you sacrifice selfishness, when we met together, huh? I think day before yesterday, you told me something that attracted my attention, and that is the journey we are undergoing with the Danish group, sacrificing the selfishness. So we will just talk about it. That is also getting rid of the delusion in a different way. But in the beginning, how are you, Brandy?
Morning. When I came into the session today, I wasn't feeling very well physically, and I remember what you said, like, if you have a headache, you have to come. And it was great during the meditation because I had an experience for a while of the formlessness, of the bodilessness, and was just served as a really good reminder that we're not the body, we're not pain. And so it was really good. Thank you.
Yes, you are right. You reminded. That's why I have addressed, I've started addressing that you all are seekers. I have a headache. I must do it. I should not avoid it. I should not avoid it. So that idea, when it lives in the mind, it is nothing but the endurance. And that endurance changes the state of your consciousness when you follow the entire journey. And it can happen not only to the headache, to the fever also, to the extreme pain in the body also. Beautiful. How are you, Barbara?
I'm very good, thank you.
You spoke at the beginning of the session about your student who's experiencing a great deal of tiredness. And I did not sleep very well last night, and I started the session being very tired. And I had a lot of difficulty with the first two segments of the breathing. But by the time we got to the third segment, I did it effortlessly. And I wanted to continue with that segment of the breathing. And then, of course, and the meditation was very calm and very peaceful and beautiful for me.
Beautiful. You all have started proving that there is a state of consciousness which is devoid of tiredness, which is devoid of headache, which is devoid of pain. That is what we say the real self is. That consciousness. So the mind overpowers with its past impression that I'm tired, I didn't have a sleep last night, and then it gives you hundreds of excuses, and we fall back into the delusion. You are wonderful. That's a beautiful explanation. How are you, Dennis?
Thank you for explaining delusion to us again and again, giving different indications of it so we can instantly identify it in our mind and look beyond it. To know that, oh, this is the delusion.
Good.
And I have to drop it. As far as the meditation, there was a sense of comfort, sense of joy. Breathing was equal. My focus at the end was on the dark space. At the same time, there was experience of like objects, like clouds in the space, but there was understanding that these objects they are also a part of the space. They do not break the uniformity of the space.
Yes. I can get it. That's again a deeper level, deeper experiences, because we don't see as if anything is divided. There is a duality. That is where the uniformity comes in. So that uniformity reflected in the mind coming from the real self. Mind cannot have a uniformity at any point of time because it always perceives, it divides and perceives. Simple. Our principle in Eastern wisdom is that mind divides and perceives. Beautiful. How are you, Christina?
Thank you. I didn't feel particularly tired today, but I noticed during the practice I kept nodding off, and that sense of peace and calmness was a little elusive today. So I must have had a lot of delusion and attachments I wasn't. Yes. I think I was aware of more fully.
Yes. You see, the beauty is that if I'm aware of that attachment or clinging or the delusion, that is also a good step in the journey. Because at least now I have started recognizing it. Previously, I was not recognizing, so it was carrying out and creating billions and millions of impressions. And the next day it is being repeated. So that is also a sign of progress. That is how our masters makes us understand this journey from ignorance to wisdom. Beautiful sharing. How are you, Terry? If you want to speak, if you don't want to speak, say no. We will understand that you are happy.
I just went into the space.
Good.
And I saw blue, a lot of blue, and I saw like a star, like
radiating. Beautiful, yeah.
Like the lines coming out like a star.
Yes.
But then as we went on, I just mainly stayed with the deep silent breathing.
Beautiful.
And but then I had one experience where I was nay to fourth row
Ah,
because I became distracted because everybody that walked by, I kept thinking, oh, the therapist is going to come in and interrupt me. But nobody did. So that was a delusion
that was the
that I
delusion.
fell into.
I appreciate, Terry, one first appreciation that you are able to communicate even in that state. And second appreciation that you are able to recognize the delusion, which is delusion is being caused because of the situation you have outside. So everyone has one's delusion, I tell you. Everyone has one's own way of creating a delusion. And through this self-inquiry, we can get rid of this delusion. Beautiful. How are you, Vaibhav?
The practice was good. Mind was calm. It's like that we create our own delusion, and with contemplation we remove by itself. Like we have to work on it to remove it.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
mind was calm.
Mind was calm. So you see that, the car is in front of you. You don't want to stop and you hit that car. Why I hit that car? Because I feel as if the car is at a right distance. Delusion. This is what happens in causing us the anger and anxiety and duality and a conflict and reaction and blame and complaint game. This continues on and on and on and on all over life. So this is what we say the world is delusion. How are you, Sangeeta?
सर प्रैक्टिस बहुत अच्छी थी, बहुत पीसफुल था। और सर मन कई बार हमें धोखा भी देता है कि गुरु का रूप भी धारण कर लेगा कि ये ठीक है तुम ये कर सकते हो, कई बार हो सकता है। क्वेश्चन है सर।
She is peaceful and she is asking that sometimes the mind takes the form of a teacher and deludes us. Yes, it is possible. It is possible. Because my interpretation, my mental interpretation of these principles wrongly will also cause the delusion. See, we are entering into a subtle areas of understanding. No, you told me, but I didn't mean that. I told you, yes, but I did not mean that. Your mind gave the wrong interpretation. That also causes the problem. So we'll talk about sacrificing our selfishness. When we sacrifice our selfishness, you are able to do and receive lot of things. So remind me in the next session, I will talk about it. And that is all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.